Chancellor launches a no-risk budget for savers. Duty goes up on petrol, beer, spirits and tobacco. Marks and Spencer workers get a 26% rise, but it must last them for 3 years. And the Prince and Princess of Wales set sail for Cameroon.
MPs interrupting about the poll tax. But were MPs affected by cameras?
I don't think it made any difference to the way in which the budget was presented. The speech was about the average length. It was eloquently delivered. And as I say, I think we were all on our best behaviour. It was just like being in church.
Certainly, by the time Mr. Major sat down, he'd won the support of his own backbenchers.
The Scottish opposition MPs interrupt the Chancellor's budget speech. New rebate savings levels for the poll tax will not apply retrospectively to Scotland. To this Tuesday's edition of the programme. Coming later north tonight, the plight of the young homeless is highlighted by children's charities who say that child abuse is the major challenge facing society in the 90s. And we report on the most exclusive restaurant in Aberdeen with some of the cheapest prices. Plus reaction to Mr. Major's budget. But first the news, and it's read by Ross McWilliam.
The Chancellor's first budget speech has ended in uproar and confusion amid protests by Scottish MPs of all parties. They called on Mr. Major to clarify whether a community charge concession would be applied retrospectively to Scotland. As the chairman made repeated calls for order, Mr. Major ended his speech, leaving opposition MPs angry and frustrated.
For the third year in succession, Scots MPs disrupted the budget speech, but this time fully an hour and a quarter into John Major's address. The Chancellor had just announced that savings limits under which poll taxpayers in England and Wales qualified for benefits would be doubled to £16,000 from April. But Mr. Major refused to clarify whether payers in Scotland, where the tax has been in place for a year, would receive backdated concessions.
We are having here an important concession announced at the beginning of the poll tax system. At the beginning of the poll tax system in England and Wales. The system has been running for over a year in Scotland.
In an interview afterwards, Mr. Major's deputy said the concessions wouldn't be applied retrospectively to Scotland.
The measures as announced by the Chancellor apply to Scotland and apply to Scotland in the same time date, but it would be very difficult to take it back a full another year.
He got just that, with the encouragement to savers the biggest boost of all. He was also delighted to see nursery places exempt from tax, meaning that more women would be able to return to work.
Significant, I think, the approach to encourage more married women back to work, where their skills are much needed in the current situation, and that is very welcome from my point of view, that he's seen to recognise the provision of workplace nurseries to remove them from any tax liability.
Mr. Mackey also expects government talks to be held soon to look at the possibility of retrospective benefits for Scotland's poll tax payers who have been faced with the charge for the past year.
It's been a bad budget for motorists, with the £2 gallon now certain to become a permanent fixture in the north and northeast. Smokers and drinkers will also feel they've been hard done by. Predictably, the cost of these dubious pleasures is also going up.
It was the first live television budget, and the Chancellor had a ready audience. But from the moment he stood up in the House, it was clear he was in a tight-fisted mood. At this town centre bar in Inverness, his swinging increases in spirits, beer, wine and cigarettes brought an immediate verdict.
Terrible for the increase in drink, but what I would like to say is that for a person to be penalised for buying a car, he's got an increase in petrol to put in the car that the government are already taking a tax off of. I think it's totally disgusting. I think it's terrible.
10 pence on fags. That's terrible.
Oh,
I'll just stop smoking. Definitely stop smoking.
What do you think of the increase in the price of a pint?
Price of a pint is that's shocking as well. Like, it's the same as fags. I mean, we're even talking about unleaded petrol. I mean, you should be trying to keep the price of unleaded petrol down to make more people buy the unleaded petrol.
Tonight, the Chancellor's 10% increase in petrol and derv has been condemned by North politicians as well as transport and community leaders. The rush is now on to fill up.